creating questionnaires and using questionnaires. And by definition, a questionnaire collects data and information from candidates and ApplicantStack users. So the employment application is a questionnaire. You're collecting data from your candidates when they apply. That would certainly include contact information, but could also include references and employment history and education history. But let me share a second use case for questionnaires, and I call these job-specific questionnaires. So the goal of a job-specific questionnaire is to be able to evaluate your candidates quickly and focus on those who are most qualified. So what I'm going to do is just go to my jobs table and click on the accounting manager opportunity. I'm going to click on the listing, which shows the job description. And I want to point out education or equivalent experience down below. So when you have a job that's got hard requirements and preferences, you can create a job-specific questionnaire surrounding those requirements. So if I go to the library, I've already created one for the accounting manager opportunity. Click on questionnaires here over in the blue menu on the left. You'll see accounting manager questions. So if I click on the questionnaire, these are questions, again, that I call a job-specific questionnaire that helps you evaluate candidates very quickly. Are you authorized to work in the United States? Do you have a bachelor's degree? And if you recall, a bachelor's degree was a hard requirement in the job description. How many years of experience do you have? So you can create as many questions as you want in a questionnaire, but typically a qualifying questionnaire, again, aligns with the requirements of the job. You'll also notice that I have rules associated with the questionnaire. So if I click on Edit Rules, you'll see that you can create knockout questions and you can score questions within a questionnaire. So this first question, are you authorized to work in the United States for any employer? If a candidate answers no, they're knocked out. Fairly similarly, do you have a bachelor's degree, a hard requirement of the job? If the candidate answers no, they're knocked out. And then, as you can see here, you can mix and match knockout questions and scoring questions all within one questionnaire. So the next question, how many years of experience do you have, you can see is a scored question. If a candidate answers 0 to 1 years, they get a 10, 1 to 3, 20, and you can see the scoring legend from that point forward. So if I cancel out of this, and I'm going to look at the candidates that have applied for the accounting management opportunity or accounting manager opportunity, your eye travels immediately to the red KO squares. So those individuals, Mark and John, have been knocked out of consideration for this job. They don't know they've been knocked out. They're still allowed to apply because that's how you grow your candidate database. And those individuals might be candidates for future opportunities. But then you can look and you can see the scoring associated with other candidates. And again, the goal of a questionnaire specific to a job is to focus on those candidates who are most qualified. So you typically go to your 40s first. This is how they scored. And then, even a 10 is obviously going to be evaluated. They have credentials and skills that might be of interest for this opportunity. I can also sort on stage, and you can just see whatever stage your candidates are in. So again, you can see how a job-specific questionnaire might help you eliminate very quickly those candidates who are not qualified for an opportunity. Another use case for a questionnaire is for phone screens or for interview evaluations. So again, I'm going to go to the library, questionnaires from the blue menu on the left. And there are actual interview evaluation questionnaires that come with all ApplicantStack accounts. So just to look at these questionnaires, you can see there's questions, obviously, answers, and again, This questionnaire is targeted to ApplicantStack users, so they can complete a questionnaire after a phone screen or after a personal interview. And what this does is it provides guidelines for the interviewer, and it also provides consistent feedback, which is quite important. Once this questionnaire has been completed by the ApplicantStack user and submitted, it's housed within the candidate record. So all information and feedback provided by ApplicantStack users are in the candidate record, as is any sort of questionnaires that have been answered by the candidate themselves. So the final thing I want to show you is just how to create a new questionnaire. And I'm in the gray menu on the right, first option, new questionnaire. And you would simply name your questionnaire, provide instructions, specify who the target is for the questionnaire, and then you start adding questions. And this is actually kind of fun. So if I click on Add Question, you choose the question type first, and you can see that there's a variety of question types. So again, if I just choose a yes/no answer, then I would actually input the question and apply the question. And you go through this process for every question that makes up the questionnaire. Again, you can mix and match answer types. You have obviously a date picker. You can request a signature. So you can really mix and match questions and answer types within a questionnaire. So this was the featured function for today, the topic obviously being questionnaires. And just as a little personal experience, I was a recruiter for a long time, and questionnaires can definitely benefit you. Obviously, everything from the employment application to qualifying questions for a job-specific questionnaire, as well as questionnaires that provide consistent feedback from your ApplicantStack team when they interview. So, very efficient function, and if you're not putting it to use, I would suggest that you do so. That's it from me, Lauren. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. That was great and very informative. We'd love to open it up to questions that don't have to be about questionnaires, but any other questions that you have or anything you might be struggling with in ApplicantStack that we can help you answer today. Feel free to drop those questions in. Oh. Carol or Ellen,
yeah.
No question yet. I was going to say, do you guys have any other experiences using questionnaires or any times that you've seen it work really successfully or in the past that we could talk to?
Yep. You know what I can mention is that ApplicantStack does provide a number of already created questionnaires that might be of interest to individuals. Again, this is my demo account, so there's a variety of questionnaires in here. But just to mention, we do offer VEVRA questionnaires already created if you track that sort of thing. We also offer the CC305 to track any sort of candidates or employees with any sort of defined disabilities. So just something to think about. If you have any sort of guidelines that require those questionnaires, we can certainly import them into accounts for you. Along that tangent also is EEO data collection too.
Great. So it looks like we've got a few questions coming in, and we'll start with the first one that came in from Megan Lay. The question is, I'm struggling with a workflow and wondered how I can make it so the manager has to click a person as approved to proceed, so then she could set up interviews.
Okay. So I think if I'm interpreting the question correctly, and let's just look at the default workflow that I've highlighted here. Sounds like the manager is reviewing a candidate, and the manager has the ability to disposition the candidate as not qualified, or has the ability to pass the candidate to the next stage in the recruit flow. So if the manager does move the candidate to the next stage, in this case it's phone screen, but in Megan's case it might be directly to interview. So when a candidate just very quickly is evaluated, let's see if I can actually get a real live, this is Dan Hicks. This is our stellar technician. I must have been doing something with Dan that day. Many of you might know him from our technical support team. But again, Dan is in manager review, and if I pass Dan from manager review, the next stage, and again, the stages of my recruit flow, is phone screen. So Megan, your next stage could be interview. Once I confirm the stage change, Dan would flow from manager review to phone screen. So I think I answered that question. Carol or Brandon, do you have anything to add?
Yep, this is Carol Kennedy. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to add that perhaps in your particular case, if you move a candidate to an approved stage, that can trigger a notification in your workflow as well to a particular user. So we can certainly take that offline and help you out with that if we need to. But Ellen, if you want to go into the workflow and maybe show where those notifications are housed.
Yes, Megan.
Sure. Yes. And what I'm showing here is an administrator only function. I clicked on the head and shoulders, my picture in the upper right hand corner, and configure. And this is advanced functionality. So Megan, if we don't answer your question this afternoon, we'll be happy to dig a little deeper in at a later time. But what Carol was referring to was the application workflow. And I call this like the electronic workflow behind what goes on in your ApplicantStack world. So Carol, you were referring to moving candidates through stages. So for example, when you move a candidate from manager review to phone screen, this email will be triggered and the job owner specified in the particular job as well as the hiring manager will be notified. So any ApplicantStack user can be notified at a stage change when a candidate moves from one stage to another. Was that what you were referring to, Carol?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Megan, hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, Megan, hopefully that answers your question. And I think we're ready to move on to the next one. Our next question is from K. McMahon. Can you show how to make a question or no out? Oh, sorry. Can you show how to make a question a no out or score?
Knockout.
Knockout. Sorry.
Knockout. Sure can. So I always go to the library to create a questionnaire. So if I click on library, click on questionnaires, I'm going to just do a new questionnaire. So we'll start from the beginning. And we're going to name this test questionnaire something very non-assuming. We're going to target it for candidates. I'm going to add a question. So the first thing you need to do is actually create the question that you want to specify as a knockout question. So I'm just going to make this a yes, no. Are you a certified, let's just say, are you a CPA, okay? If I can key in properly. And let's just say being a CPA is an absolute hard requirement of your job. We're going to make this a required question and save it. And let's just pretend that it's a one question questionnaire. So here's my questionnaire. If I click on that, you'll see the question, and you'll see that there are no scoring rules as of yet. So if I click on the live link entitled Add Rules, my question comes up, And if I check the knockout box here, then this question becomes a knockout question. And any candidate that applies, answers the question with a no answer, is then a knockout question. And again, it's really apparent that a candidate is a knockout when you look at your candidates table associated with a job. All right, Lauren, I think we did it for that question.
Awesome. Thank you for your question, Kay. And so we've got another question from Pete Felkner. When I delete an employee, is their information saved?
This is Carol. I can take this question. I would probably recommend not deleting employees out of the system. Rather, I would say maybe you want to create a stage or a job folder for future interest, not for this particular opportunity, and moving them to a different job folder or stage rather than deleting, just to make sure that information is retained in your system. You never know when you might need to go back and refer to something if you have an audit, as an example. So that would be my best advice on that.
Okay. Great. Moving on to our next question from Deborah Dworsky. And also, if a question does require further explanation, and we are on your question and you'd like to unmute yourself to just have answer a few more questions that might come up, feel free to do so as we're addressing your question. So the question from Deborah is, can you go directly to the library for question samples and for question samples?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand that question, but I am in the library. I am in the questionnaires area. Carol, Brandon, can you help interpret that question?
Yeah, I'm wondering if the question refers to you can go to the library, or when you're creating a job, under the questions tab for that job, you can also pull questions from the library, or you can go ahead and create it from scratch as you're creating your job. So I'm wondering if that addresses the question.
So, and it might, and that question also spurs something else. When you are in the job and move from the summary tab to the questions tab, you can see what questions are associated with the job. So for example, the application for employment questionnaire is part of this job. That's actually a system setting, which means that this questionnaire, the application for employment, is going to auto attach to every single job. You don't have to have it that way, by the way. And then you'll notice the accounting manager questionnaire that I did pull in from the library. But as Carol was mentioning, you can create a new questionnaire from the questions tab from the job as well.
Great. Next up, I've got a question from Maura Grossman. Would you please comment on how the new Indeed integration feature works?
Absolutely. So as I bet we all know, you can launch your jobs from ApplicantStack to Indeed's organic free feed, which means that your jobs are in their queue, and as time goes by, your jobs get farther and farther down into the Indeed queue. However, saying that, if anybody searches your jobs and they're looking for an account manager in Raleigh, North Carolina, your jobs are going to come up regardless of where the job is in the Indeed queue. So if I go to the Jobs tab, you'll see again where your jobs are launched under this stage column. Again, this is my demo account, so these jobs are not launched to Indeed or any other third-party job board. The tri-blue icon specifies that they're launched to my organization's job board. You'll also notice that none of the jobs are sponsored. But what the Indeed sponsorship allows you to do, and let me just go to the account manager opportunity again. I'm moving from the summary tab to the launch tab. And you'll see the job boards which we integrate with. You'll see your public job board, internal job board. So that's if you have an intranet, you can post jobs as well. And then you'll see the Indeed sponsorship segment as well as third-party job boards down below. So I think the question was to discuss the ability to sponsor your ApplicantStack jobs to Indeed. So it's a multi-step process. When you create and launch a job, the first thing that you need to do in regard to Indeed is post your job in the Indeed organic free posting area through the link Post a Job. Once you do that, I'm going to move up. It takes up to 8 hours for you to have the ability to sponsor your job on Indeed, that same job. And Indeed goes through their quality assurance and the feeds go out. And once that time frame is up, sponsor job, this link that is grayed out that I just highlighted, will become a live link. And when you click on sponsor job, you then have the ability to either create an account with Indeed to sponsor your jobs or choose an already created account. You go through a couple different prompts that are intuitive, and when you launch your job through ApplicantStack and sponsor it on Indeed, it then comes up to the top of that queue more frequently based on how much you've sponsored the job for. What's nice about this, there are also some predictive calculators or campaign, well, I guess predictive calculators is the right word. And so ApplicantStack will show you from within ApplicantStack, if you budget $500 a month, what the anticipated number of candidates you have that will apply. And you can input different monthly amounts, and those predictors will allow you to figure out what's best in regard to your sponsorship budget. In addition, there are some limited campaign analytics that you'll be able to see from inside of ApplicantStack. And you can always go to your Indeed account to check your budget as well as some deeper dive analytics. But the benefit of sponsoring your jobs from within ApplicantStack is you never have to leave ApplicantStack. You can just do it right from here. And then again, you can see those jobs on your jobs table, what's been sponsored, and again, some details and analytics can be viewed from within ApplicantStack. Carol or Brandon, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you explained it well. Thank you, Ellen.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Next up, so I have a question from Michelle Alaman, and it was speaking about going over internal posting and knowing where the jobs get posted and how internal employees can access that. So I'm thinking that's kind of similar to what we just went over, but if I'm wrong and we want to dive into that, we can do that as well.
Yeah,
okay.
So internal jobs could be posted to your internal job board. So Ellen, if you would go ahead to the Launch tab. And if you have it marked active in your setup, you should see the internal job board here. So if you click on Post Job for your internal job board, it should prompt you, and you can have, for example, a 5-day period where it's posted to your internal employees and not to your external employees. It will prompt you for that. And then your internal job board has a slightly different URL to it. So it ends in -internal. And there's a couple of different ways I've seen that approached. You can put that URL on a company intranet as an example. I've also seen where there's an email blast that goes out, hey, we have a new opening, and click here to apply, and it will bring everyone to the internal job board. The internal job board can be configured a little bit differently in your setup. For example, maybe you're not collecting a resume since you maybe already have that, or there's some settings that you can change around to have it work a little bit differently. And you'll see here, so we've got that URL up at the top, -internal. So that is what you would copy paste, either put on an intranet, embed that, or send that out via email. And then any job posted there, your internal candidates would be able to apply.
Great, thank you, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one question that came in just on Indeed from Kay. Is there a minimum for the $200 sponsorship per post for Indeed? Or is that still the minimum?
You know what? We just got clarification on that. Is it a $50 minimum in order to sponsor on Indeed, Carol and Brandon?
Yes, that's what I learned, $50.
Yes. Yep. So there is a $50 minimum in order to sponsor your jobs from ApplicantStack to Indeed.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I have a question from Victoria Anderson, and she's wondering if there's an option of having a new user group for a search committee that will only view applications at a security level in there versus how we assign them with the hiring manager. So I think having like more people other than the hiring manager that are able to access that, if I'm getting that correct.
Yeah, so hello, Victoria, by the way. This is Ellen. I hope you are doing well. Love to hear my customers on this call. So right now, again, I hope I'm answering your question. There are 3 roles in ApplicantStack: an administrator who can see it all, do it all, and configure the account; a recruiter that can do everything an administrator can do, but not configure the account; and then hiring managers that have the ability to view jobs and candidates within their jobs where they have been designated as a hiring manager. So Victoria, it sounds like maybe you're looking for more of another role within ApplicantStack, and it might be, and I'm interpolating here, that you don't want specific information to be shared with your committee or your peer review group, something along those lines. We don't have that role right now. We've been asked that before. What I've told my customers before is if you have any sort of information that you don't want your hiring managers to view, you can always create a questionnaire. See how this has come back to the featured function of questionnaires? You can always create a questionnaire, and then we can flag it as a private questionnaire so that only administrators can view that information, or only administrators and recruiters can view that information. So it could be salary information, it could be anything else that you deem may be confidential that you don't want your hiring managers to see. So this is kind of a solution to what I think your question may be. And if I haven't answered your question, we can follow up with you, Victoria, as well. Please note that when you create a questionnaire, it defaults to having all users access and see the questionnaire. Again, that questionnaire can be modified so that only administrators can see it, nobody else, or administrators and recruiters. So I hope I've given you a solution if I've interpreted your question properly, Victoria.
Yes.
Carol or Brandon, you have anything there to add? Nope, doesn't sound like it. Okay.
If we do have any, if we did not answer your question correct, or if we needed to go deeper into that question, please send us another message and we'll come back to that. We want to make sure we're getting all your questions answered. And I know there's been some follow-up questions in the question panel as well, so we're just working through those. And if we miss something, please reach out. Victoria did send a follow-up message, the issue on the hiring managers, but Victoria, if you'd like to unmute, we can talk about that a little bit more in detail, or we can, if we're good, we can move on to the next question. Okay. We'll move on to our next question. So I've got a question from, oh, sorry, hold on, let me fix that. Okay, you should be good now, Victoria.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. What I was trying to say is that, so what we've experienced is that we're utilizing ApplicantStack for the stages and the statuses. And so we have our search committees utilize viewing and screening applicant materials through ApplicantStack. And so even though we, in our ApplicantStack walkthrough job aid, designate that only the hiring chair should move a stage, from either incomplete or do not pursue or interview, we sometimes find others in the search committee with the same hiring manager access making those transitions, so it kind of throws off that chair because they don't realize that John Doe moved something when they really shouldn't have. And so that's why that question came back to us at one of our own, similar to what we're having now, listening committee. And so they had wondered, is there an option down the line of something like that being added? So that's where that came from.
Ellen, this sounds to me like a workflow question, maybe restricting access by stage.
I'm thinking.
So.
And now I understand your question, Victoria. Yeah, because a hiring manager typically has the ability to move candidates from stage to stage, once again, if they're designated as a hiring manager for that opportunity. This might be one for our technical expert, Dan Hicks or Ryan Cook. So the question becomes is, can you restrict hiring managers from moving candidates, allowing only one to move?
Yeah, and so I did a test of it in the test and then just in some job aids that I created, and then I made a test user, and then it doesn't restrict it. It lets you, like you said, the view is all kind of thing, so it does do it. But so that was just a question that came up in one of our Q&A things, and I said that I would just bring it here to see.
Yeah. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll just submit a quick ticket on your behalf and ask the experts from our technical support group to respond to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Victoria.
Thanks.
And we do have one other question for Victoria back on Indeed. Is that for that $50 minimum, is that per job or is that started, or would that be per job?
My understanding is it is per job.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on to our next question. We've got a question from Maura Grossman, and she is wondering if it's possible to book a time with a tech expert and review how she's using the system and making suggestions on features or that she should be using or anything that she should be using differently.
So yes, so an overview of your account and features and functionality and best practices and suggestions would be the responsibility of Brandon, Carol, and myself, so your account manager. So yes, you can absolutely book a time. We ask that you do come prepared with questions, but we are absolutely happy to jump in and do kind of an account evaluation, I guess is the proper term with you. If it's something more technical like configuring workflows and stages, again, we defer to the experts in technical support. So we ask you to create a technical support ticket that you can do by clicking on the white question mark in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm showing it to you now. From the drop-down, you can click on Ask a Question, and a template will come up that we ask you to complete and provide as much information as possible. And our technical support team will evaluate the question, respond, and if it does merit a conversation, you can schedule a call with our tech support team as well. We do ask that you give our tech support team a day or two in order to schedule that call, just based on what they have going on. So great. I hope I answered that question as well.
Thank you. I have a couple other questions from Maura, and the first question is, where do we find the template For interview evaluation, it was a form that we previously showed.
Right, that would be the library and questionnaires. So there are, I believe there's 2 that come standard with every account. You are free to create your own or modify what is in there. You can also clone one of these 2 if you want to make changes to it and still have the original to fall back on. You can clone that questionnaire, make your changes to it, and modify it as needed.
Great. And then on the questionnaires as well, how do you archive a questionnaire no longer needed? Or would you just delete that?
I'm up here in the gray menu on the right where it says archive. So you can specify which questionnaires you want archived. And then once you click on archive, I'm afraid to do it, but I'm pretty sure there's another question saying, are you sure you want to archive these? Regardless, you can pull in or you can view what questionnaires have been archived.
Great. Thank you. And we've answered Maura's question, so thank you for sending that in. I've got another question from Nick Turner. Is there a way that duplicate applications can't be viewed by hiring managers? We're finding some departments see someone that applied for a different job and they're wondering if something is wrong as to why someone wasn't hired. So if we need a little more info on that question, if Nick, you'd like, we can unmute you and we can talk about that as well.
I'll go ahead and get started. Carol, help me out if you can. So duplicate candidates, if you do have duplicate candidates, let's see. A visual is always a good thing. You'll see that within the candidate record, there are number of duplicates that are in the system. So if you hover over the number of duplicates, you can see information about what job and the stage that, in this case, I'm in those other jobs. What you can do, and again, I'm hoping I'm answering your question, is if you're in a candidate record and you go to the feedback tab, so this is feedback that ApplicantStack users are inputting on candidates. And if I go to add feedback, any feedback that you input, you can specify that it's global. And hold on, maybe it's the add note functionality.
Right,
Okay.
it would be
Yep. I was like, where is my global checkbox? Okay. So I'm going to back up a minute. I'm going to go to the candidate, I'm in the candidate record. You fall on the summary tab. So if I come over here to add note from the gray menu on the right, you can add a note. And then if you choose global, this note will show to all ApplicantStack users. So if I'm interpreting the question correctly, you could put in there any sort of note that you wanted to, and if you check global, all hiring managers would be able to see that note that other individuals input for the candidate. Carol, do you have anything? Brandon, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, the only thing we're going to add to that is they're asking duplicate applications cannot be viewed. So I would say jobs are restricted. Hiring managers should only see the candidates and jobs specifically in the jobs assigned to them. So when you create a job, you'll be prompted to check who's the job owner, who's the hiring manager, and then you can restrict access that way. And hiring managers should only see them if they appear under that job. That would be my only other thought.
Okay.
Excellent.
And Nick, if we didn't answer your question, please send a follow-up if we can clarify anything else for you. Moving on to our next question. This is from Victoria. Will there ever be an archive option for the job templates similar to that the questionnaire has?
Job templates, archive option.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
not seeing it. You could maybe rename the job, put an underscore, name it archive, something of that sort, to at least get it out of your kind of bucket. I don't see an archive functionality right now. Unless, Alan, you can see something I can't.
No, there is no archive. I'm sure there's some rationale behind that, Victoria, but I don't know it, frankly. But again, a lot of people name their job templates